To Mastering Swiftpage eBlasts. This is our Treasure Triangle series. It's the second of our 3 parts on the Treasure Triangle, which we'll show you in a minute. My name is Lori Feldman. I am also known as the Database Diva. We help companies grow by monetizing their ACT database and integrating it with their website, blog, social media, and we're also one of the top Swiftpage resellers in the world, specializing in ACT, email, and drip marketing. On the phone with me is Todd Vio. He is our VP of Technology and a Senior ACT Consultant. Todd, say hello.
Hello.
Our goal is to demystify the email marketing process and help you optimize your email subscription with Swiftpage. Most people only use it to do email blasts. That's what we talked about last week. And we're going to show you 2 more ways today and next week on other ways that you can use your account included in your subscription to help you drive more leads and sales and other opportunities to build your list. So we're going to talk for approximately an hour. If you have questions along the way, post them in the chat box of your GoToMeeting webinar panel, and we'll get to them as we go, and we'll also save time after we're finished with our training to answer anything that you'd like on any topic. Hold on, I think I need to change. Yeah, hang on just a second. I have the wrong slide up. I think I pulled up the wrong one, Todd. Let me see. There we go. Sorry, everybody. Hang on. Technical difficulties. All right, there we go. All right, we're back. So everyone should have received an agenda for today's event, and you could take notes on that if you didn't get it. There's a link for it here, and then also you'll have it for tomorrow, or you'll get it tomorrow when we send out the recording for today's training. We're going to keep the agenda pretty rapidly flowing. We're going to talk about the Treasure Triangle, why you should have an e-newsletter, some content ideas for how to get started. People struggle with that part. Some design ideas for putting it together, and then creating a dynamic group in ACT so that you can easily send it out and not have to work very hard every time you want to send it to put a list together, and then sending, tracking, reporting, and some free resources. Okay, so here's our Treasure Triangle. Those of you who have been on a lot of our trainings have heard me talk about this before. It doesn't hurt to hear it 400 times to really burn it into your brain, because most people think of email in a very linear way, and it can be very strategic in the way that you deploy it within your company to get leads and sales, as we talked about. So last week we talked about doing email blasts, and if anybody missed that one and would like to hear it, we're going to put a link into the resources that are going out tomorrow, and you'll be able to catch up. But today we're going to really focus on e-newsletters. And e-newsletters, you'll see, are point 2 in our Treasure Triangle. And e-blasts and e-newsletters are what I call the top half of the Treasure Triangle. So if you were to draw a line directly in half, slicing the top half from the bottom half, everything that's above the line is what I call the all about me experience. It's your products, your services, your customers, your employees, your trucks, your whatever it is that you have about your business, and you're telling the world about those things. Nothing wrong with that, absolutely fine, but it does not complete the picture. When you get below the treasure triangle, when you're at the bottom half and you're now into drip marketing, this is where the value to your recipient, your reader, comes in. And we're going to talk about this in more detail next week. But you really need to have the top half and the bottom half so that you've got a kind of a cornucopia of things that the reader gets from you. Some they may not be interested in, some they may be very interested in, and that's what keeps them interested in staying on your list and following you and seeing you as the subject matter expert in your field, so that when they're ready to make a purchase, you're the first one that they think of. That's what we're really trying to shoot for with this full treasure triangle approach. Without this treasure triangle approach, what most people do is default right here. So I would say probably 70–80% of everybody using Swiftpage right now, or any email service provider for that matter, is probably focusing all their efforts on, what can I get out to my list? I have to get something out. I need to stay in touch and blast, special offer, event. It's all very pushed out there with very limited thought. And with just a little bit of effort, you can round it out with these other two options and really look like a professionally well-marketed company. So how do we do that? Well, I think everybody should have an e-newsletter if they don't. And there are many, many benefits to having it. I'll let you all read our slide here while I talk about what I feel like are the main benefits. And the first one that I think is very important is there a way for you to increase website traffic to your site. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in detail, show you some proof of that. But we just talked about promoting yourself as the go-to expert in your field. So when a customer ultimately buys, decides it's time to buy, he's ready to buy, ready to pull out a credit card, call you up an order, he's going to do that with someone that he knows, likes, and trusts. Everybody knows that. That's Sales 101. So if you don't communicate often enough and nurture the relationship with that person between the sale, the customer is left to his own evaluation system, which usually means he's going to choose the best price. That's the default of everyone when they're buying without enough information, without knowing why they should spend more money. Nobody wants to spend more money. So your newsletter is that piece that educates them on how to be a better buyer for when they are ready to make a purchase. And it helps you stay top of mind in between each individual sale, and the rest of those you can see, and all good reasons to have one. I guess the most important thing to recognize about newsletters is it's not the customer's job to remember you. They just don't. First of all, they're getting way too many emails. They're doing way too much research on their own when they finally are ready to go into buying mode. They're going to go online. 87% of all sales start with a Google search. That's a proven stat. So if you're not part of that communication process, they're going to do their research and you're never going to come up. So by using an email newsletter to stay in touch, you at least have a shot of getting on that short list. Now, I have a lot of people who say to me, Lori, I don't want to do a newsletter because I don't want to be perceived as a spammer. Well, here's my rule of thumb on that. If you are not getting between 2 to 3 opt-outs per 1,000 contacts that you're sending out, each mailing, then you're not mailing enough. So yes, we all know that opt-outs are bad and opt-outs are very disappointing, but if you're not pushing the envelope, there's probably a way for you to send out more information over time than what you're currently doing. And each time you do, you're going to get some results that were unexpected. So I'm not saying that there'll always be results that end in a sale, but there are other valuable touch points between you and the customer on the way to that sale that you would also want to have a chance to have communication with them about. So they might have a question, they might want a quote, They might want you in on a meeting that they're doing. All of these things are good things, and they may not be the end result sale, but they put you closer on the path to getting there. Okay, so this is just a quick case study of a newsletter that we helped one of our clients get started. He was a printer, and he was the sales manager. He was very busy, not a writer, didn't have time to do it, but we showed him some of the things that we're going to show you today, and he was able to pull it together. And I think this is an old slide. He's actually been doing a newsletter now for over 6 years, uninterrupted, every month, and has told me repeatedly over the years when I keep checking in with him, he averages between 5 and 12 new quote requests each time. Plus he gets all kinds of questions about, you know, how do I do this? What's the best way to do that? So he feels like he's really having a conversation with a lot of the people on his list, which is great. Here's an example of what I was telling you about generating website traffic. So this is not necessarily a newsletter. This is just an email, but this is my example that I want to show you of what happens when you send your list anything. You are, with your clicks, hopefully you're going to click back to your website, and by getting people onto your website, they have a chance to stay there longer and navigate around to other things. And that is what helps improve your quality score with Google. Google wants to send traffic to sites that it looks like other people are visiting. So if you have good traffic going to your site, then you're always going to stay in the index with Google, and you have a chance of getting more of the organic search. And if you're doing pay-per-click, it's the same thing. If you do pay-per-click, you're sending traffic to your site. When you do an email newsletter, you're sending traffic to your site. So here is an example of our Google Analytics for the week that email that I just showed went out. And you can kind of see we're kind of tooting along here, and then right here is where we dropped our newsletter. So there's a little spike. So imagine if you're only sending an email out once a quarter. You're only going to get that spike once a quarter. But if you start working on the treasure triangle to where you've got some messages going out to some people on your list virtually every day, which is easy to do with drip marketing, so I'll talk more about that part next week. But if you do an email blast, say once a month, you do an email newsletter once a month, that's at least 2 guaranteed times to spike your traffic. So that's a really good strategy for how to get more traffic to your site, and we use that a lot as part of our strategy for our treasure triangle with our marketing. All right, so what do I write about? This is where everybody gets stuck. You don't need to put a lot of different things in there. You don't have to make them super long. In fact, shorter is better. But let's talk about what a newsletter is not. So these are examples of non-newsletters. But a lot of times, you know, people will say, "Oh, I do newsletters. I send them out. You know, I send them out every week." Well, a lot of times what they're referring to are email blasts, which if you were on last week's call, you got the definition of what an e-blast is. And most people confuse the two, and they're totally separate strategies. So this is one inviting somebody to a networking event. This is one with coupons showing specials of the week. To me, they're email blasts. They're not newsletters. So that's not what we're going to talk about now today. What we're talking about today is things that look like this. Now, they don't have to be that long. They don't have to have as many different categories of things in them, but they typically have some kind of graphic. I'm a fan of low graphics because I think it improves deliverability, but nice sectioned off things with headlines. So here's one that's using graphics to do that. Here's one with just 2, but short to the point. You can scan it. You can see what things you're interested in, big headline at the top. So these are the kinds of things that I think are right to be included in a newsletter. And here's my checklist of things that are very easy to write about each time. So when you put together your newsletter, you can say, well, I'm always going to have a note from the president or a note from me. And I'm always going to offer some kind of free checklist. And I'm always going to have the top 5 of something in the industry that's going on this month, this quarter, this year. So it's very easy to just pick a few of these and repeat them each time, just updating the information. And then Q&As, everybody's getting questions from people, prospects from customers that they answer all week long. If you're not having direct customer contact, then probably people on your staff are having that contact, and they can give you that information, and then just repeating that to your list makes it really easy to answer a lot of questions in advance instead of having to take those questions over the phone all the time or through email. It cuts down on that. So I've got 2 things highlighted right here. The case study, which I'm going to show you an easy way to do that and generate content for your newsletter. And then also surveys, and surveys are also a part of your Swiftpage subscription. So it doesn't cost any more to do a survey and ask people what they would like to hear about from you to get ideas of other things that you can write about. So don't bother reading this. I'm going to tell you what it is, and then if you want a copy of it, again, I'm putting the resource link to it in tomorrow's recording email, so don't worry about copying it all down. But this is a request for an interview that we always send to our clients who have done a really good job using our help to get them whatever they were trying to accomplish. And now we want to brag about it to our other clients. So we've come up with 6 or 7 questions that they can answer through an email. And when they answer it, we just put it together in the form of usually I do it in a blog post, post it to our blog, and then put a link to it in our newsletter so that people can read about it. And I try to pick case studies where it's a typical question that somebody has in a very creative way that they resolved what they were trying to do and how they reached their goals implementing that strategy. So this is a great way of generating content from customers, and it's always better if a customer can tell you how wonderful you are than if you're saying how wonderful you are. So this is an easy way to get that information from them. Another one of my favorite ways of getting content ideas, I'm not a big fan of, okay, it's that time of the month where I have to sit down and write my newsletter and I have nothing to say and I can't think of anything to say and it's all been said before, and it's very daunting to try to type from nothing when you're trying to create it and you've only allocated, 30 minutes to get this whole thing done, and nobody can create on the fly like that unless you're, a reporter who does it all the time. So one of my favorite ways of kind of generating new ideas, I guess would be the way to say it, because I don't really copy exactly what they come up with, but I use this program called Scoop.it. It's a free service, free website. You set up an account and you put in a couple of keywords. They used to give you like 3 keywords that you can add. Now the free version only has 1. So I use drip marketing. And once you put that in as your keyword, it gives you this running real-time list, almost like a Google Alerts, but much more focused and much more, I don't know, their algorithm is a little bit better than any Google Alert I ever get. This is real-time published articles, news items, blog posts, PR announcements, all kinds of stuff like that under the topic of drip marketing. And it's very easy for me to flip through here and go, oh, I can write something about that headline. Yeah, I know a few things about that headline. And so I can either cobble together my own original thought from looking at these topics, or I can reference these topics in what I'm going to write about, because this is what's trending at the top of the search engines right now for my keyword. So this is, and it also tells me, I don't know if I'm showing it on here, I can't see, but the more current, this is an older slide, the current version also shows you how many times somebody has shared that in social media. So obviously articles that are getting high share are going to be much more of interest to a bigger variety of people. And so if you focus on writing about what people are already reading, it's much easier to create interest in your stuff. So hopefully that makes sense. But that's a great free resource. I love it. Never ceases to help me with coming up with the most brilliant content. Okay, URL links. Just like with eBlasts, the URLs that you put into your e-newsletter are very, very, very important for demonstrating engagement with your reading material. If you send out an email newsletter and you get, let's say, a 20% open rate, which is very respectable, but you have no clicks, that meant in most cases people opened it, they scanned it, they saw nothing of interest, they moved on. So that's not what we want. We want them to not only open, but we want them to click through and get more information. So your job with your email newsletter is to figure out what is going to get the click. How can you make them click? What link bait, if you will, can you put in your newsletter that will be so compelling that they can't help but click through and go get that thing? And that's why I'm a big fan of downloadables. So a free PDF, a free cheat sheet, a free checklist, the top 5, all of those things are quickies, easily click through, not a huge commitment on their part. You're not asking them to call you. You're not asking them to fill out anything necessarily. You're just giving them options. And the more links that you have, the more you can tell which things each person, each reader is interested in, as opposed to the general overall newsletter list that you sent. So that one of the advantages of Swiftpage is that it integrates back into ACT, and you can then go into that contact's history and see which links that person has clicked on, which subject lines were was that person most interested in, and you can get kind of a bead on what it is that you would need to say to that person in a selling situation that would help you close the deal with that person. And that's the advantage of the Swiftpage integration with ACT. So let me show you a couple of examples of ones that I pulled. So here's a newsletter that has tons of links. Now, I've been on this newsletter list for a long time, and their newsletters always look like this, so I guess that's working for them. I tend to not put that many choices in. I think you can have too many things for people to click on as well. So I always like to have between, I'll say, 3 and 6 links per newsletter. So you want them to be really, really meaningful, good ones, high value. If they click through, they're going to get something of very high value. All right, so design considerations. I'm not going to tell you how to make your newsletters pretty. I've heard a lot of people say Swiftpage has ugly templates. I don't disagree with that. I don't think they need to be gorgeous. As I said, I'm more of a fan of simpler graphics from a readability standpoint. It doesn't matter how beautiful your email is if nobody's opening it because it looks like spam. So that being said, if you want something that looks really, really designed, the best way to do it is to have a designer design something for you in HTML and then import that into Swiftpage. Their designs are not that advanced, so you're probably going to be disappointed with anything that they have. But if you can find one of the templates that you like and you can improve upon it, which Todd is going to show you how to do in a minute, then it's acceptable. But overall, you need to realize that when you're designing these things, half of them are going to be read on a mobile device. So there are a few things that you want to keep in mind when you're designing an email newsletter, very similar to designing an e-blast like we talked about last week. And first of all is you've only got, in some cases, 640 pixels wide. Now, I just got my new Samsung phone, so it may be even up to 700 pixels wide now. I don't really know. But it's, you know, if you're on a tablet, you're going to have a little bit more room. But these design recommendations tend to be one column. Design your template to be one column, not multiple columns, because the way that they render on mobile is by stacking. And if you have your important information on the right column on a 2-column template, then that information is going to go down to the bottom. So along with having a 1-column template, you want to put your most important stuff up at the top. So if you rely on phone numbers for people to call you, then you want to put a text-based, not an image, not a graphic of your phone number, but a text-based phone number up at the top. And of course, as we know on a mobile, you can one-touch click that and dial the phone number. So you can't do that if it's an image. And you want to make the type big enough so that when it goes onto a smaller device, it's still readable, or you've got at least important headlines in bigger type up at the top. So this is a good slide kind of indicating all of that, but again, more things to keep in mind while you're going through the design process. So we've come up with 4 things that you need to consider. There's probably many more, but these are the top 4 things that you need to consider in order to get maximum readership and click-through. And one is delivery. So again, we want to create a template that will go through all of the spam blocks. It will be instantly identified with who it's from, either by name or by company name or by domain name. So you don't want to, you want to get away from having info at, admin at, sales at. Those are not good from display names or email names. So if you want to make a duplicate email address that has your name in it, something different, you don't want to use your email address because you will get all of the opt-outs, the bounces, the out-of-offices, all of that's going to come back to whatever email address you're using. So I don't recommend using your own email address for that because you'll have to weed through all that stuff with your personal email. But come up with a real person's name because people like to read email from other people. They don't like to read it from companies. So that's the delivery part. You can also create a Swiftpage SPF record, which is a technical thing. We'll have that in the resources for you, but that's a way to make sure that technically your email is going through the email systems both on your end or on Swiftpage's end and also on the receiving server end. And it's a one-time fill out a form and put the information where it's supposed to go, and it's a step-by-step that we'll give you on how to do that if you haven't done it yet. You only have to do it once. You're going to want to set up a calendar. One of the most important things about doing a newsletter is if you're going to do it, you need to do it regularly. People need to know when to expect that they're going to get it from you. And to the point where, and I've had people say this to me, am I still on your list? I don't remember seeing a newsletter from you recently, and I really want to stay on your list. I've actually had those emails come in. So you want to get your email newsletter to the point where it's an expected help in the recipient's inbox. And so some of the things that we're talking today, that's going to help you get closer to having that end result. But frequency and consistency are critical if you're going to do this. All right, then a lot of people say, well, what's the best time to send it? And, you know, how often should I send them? Okay, it's going to depend, obviously, on the business that you're in. You're going to want to test it. But as a general rule, if you're sending to business people, you want to send it during regular business hours. You want to consider that there are possibly multiple time zones that people are going to be receiving these. So you want to just pick a window where pretty much the time zones are going to match. Now, if you're emailing globally, that's not going to be possible. You're just going to have to test and see which times tend to work better. But you do want to avoid the morning when people are cleaning out their inboxes, or Mondays when they're coming back from a long weekend and they're going through and they're just going to delete everything just to get caught up. So those would be good times to avoid. A lot of times I've heard people say that lunchtime is a good time to send because many people eat at their desks, and so they're going to scan through email at that time. If you're sending to salespeople, you may want to send before 11 a.m., before they go to lunch, or after, you know, maybe 1 or 2 o'clock, because if they're taking clients to lunch, it's going to be a long lunch, and then when they get back, they may check in. If it's you're sending to consumers, you may have, maybe any day of the week would be fine, but sometimes weekends are better. So people are going to, stay home on a Saturday and Sunday and maybe check in a little bit before they leave for their day. So weekends might be a good time to mail. Okay, as far as content, you're trying to do forward-worthy content, the kind of content that you see online all the time where somebody, has some compelling headline and that makes you click, and then that makes you think of somebody else who's on your list and sending something to them. You want to kind of replicate that with your e-newsletter strategy yourself, because not everyone is going to read everything that you send, but there will be things that you put in there that will tweak them, and they're going to check in with you. They're not going to opt out if at least some of the time they're finding something of value that they're interested in. Okay, one more very cool resource for you, and then I'm going to turn it over to Todd. So graphics are a great addition to not only your newsletter, but to your website to promote the idea of people signing up for your newsletter. So, and then within your newsletter, you can have text-based links, and you can also have image links. And both count as far as people clicking through. When you get your Swiftpage stats, which we're going to show you later, images and text are equally counted as far as click-throughs are concerned. So if you need a place to get graphics done, Fiverr.com is a great website. It's a place where people will do anything for $5, and I mean anything. It's very entertaining to flip through the site and see the kinds of things that people are offering to do for $5, but the way that we use it the most is for getting quick graphics done or trying out, maybe testing, will this headline work better than this headline in terms of getting a link on our website. So we'll try different things, and then putting images into your newsletter as well. One of the biggest things that are really getting a lot of clicks these days are infographics. And infographics are where, I'm sure everybody's seen them, where you take stats from a study or from your industry or quotes that people have given in within your industry when they're being interviewed, and you put them all together in a very pleasing graphic. So there's a whole section on Fiverr where people you can just send the stats to them, and they'll make them into a really pretty infographic that you can then put up on your website or in your newsletter. So that's one way of, one example of how to use Fiverr for that. So now I'm going to turn it over to Todd, and Todd, you are going to take us through how to do everything.
Okay. All right, so the first thing you have to do is get into your Swiftpage account. So I'm going to show you really quickly how to do that. The way I usually do, there's lots of different ways of doing it, but the way I usually do is I click on the Swiftpage icon in Act. It's the little cloud with the envelope in front of it, and it opens up the window. I don't really care what template or whatever I'm doing right now. I just click the Edit Template button, and that will take me to the Swiftpage website. So it opens up the web browser, takes me to the Swiftpage website, and then I just cancel out of the template and hit the Home button to go back to my, or I just cancel out the template actually. It takes me back to my templates page. So, and then I can, it'll take, when I'm on the templates page, if I want to see new templates, if I'm going to start with new templates, there's a Global Templates button at the top left. Click that, and then it lists all the templates below that, but you can't really tell much from that list. So if you click the Preview All button, we have highlighted there, that will show you all of the templates in a visual form, so you can see what all the templates look like. And there's tabs across the top that give you additional templates. So if you don't see anything on this first screen, just keep clicking the tabs till you find something. Now, what this is doing, though, is it's giving you the images and everything with it, but you can swap those out, put your own images in there, so you don't have to use everything that they have, or even the color scheme for that matter. You can change the color schemes as well. So the biggest thing you're looking for is kind of the layout that you want, and depending on which one you select, you can even adjust that somewhat as well. So, but go through, select which one you want, and then you copy it over to your local templates. So now we're on our local templates, and during the copy process, I don't remember, does it ask you during the copy process or after? It does during the process. Okay, so during the copy process, you can, it'll ask you to give it a name. So the way we do our naming convention, you can kind of see that here on there, on this slide. We put the date that we're putting that we send out or we're sending out the newsletter in. So we put the date and then dash what it is. And you can see one, there's a newsletter, Swiftpage, there's a few more newsletters up above. They're mixed with the actual email blast that we're sending out as well. So we kind of put newsletter at the beginning of it. But it's year, month, date. That puts everything in chronological order, so later on when we go back to look for it, we may not remember exactly the name that we used or what it was called, but we have a general idea of what the date was that we sent that out, so we can go by date, look at that, and then we have a little description afterward to help us narrow down to find the one we're looking for. So we do date, dash, newsletter, dash, and then a little bit about what the newsletter was about in there.
And if you don't do something like this, then you end up with alphabetized templates, and you can never find anything.
Yeah, yeah. So then you have to actually remember exactly what you called it instead of just the general time that you sent it. Okay, so Lori was talking about all of the images that you can get from Fiverr. You can upload those in the Swiftpage. Swiftpage will host those for you, so you don't have to upload that to your website. Swiftpage will take care of that for you. There is a Manage Images button at the top. When you click on that, it lists all the images you currently have in your account. And you click the Browse button, select your image, upload it, and then it will store it for you. Depending on what type of there's two different ways of adding information to the template, so adding images to the template. So actually, I'm sorry, that's documented. Never mind, ignore that one. So the images, you can select the window and choose to upload an image to each window that's in the Swiftpage template. So it's very simple. Once the images are uploaded into your account, to add them to the template, you just select the window, add the images to that. You can also do documents though as well. So there's a Documents tab up there. When you upload the documents, it can do. I think it gives you different ones. Yeah, so it does show you there. So it says text files, Word documents, Excel sheets. So you have different things that you can upload, different types of documents you upload. This is, again, allowing Swiftpage to host that for you, and then you're just going to put a link within your template to this document, and it'll download back into the, or download to the contact's computer once they click on that. Now, this is the one that there is a feature within the template to link the two. It'll try to automatically link it for you. That feature doesn't work very well. What we find that works better is if you click the View button on this screen, and it'll open up that document in your browser, grab the URL for that document, the link to that document, just grab it out of the address bar there, copy that, and then just hyperlink it normally. So click the highlight what you want in the template, click the hyperlink button, and paste that link in there. That works a lot better than trying to use the built-in document link, the feature that Swiftpage has. That tends to not work unless things fall into place exactly perfect for it to figure out what you're trying to do. So instead of that, just click that View button, highlight or have it pop up the document, grab the URL, copy it out of there, out of the address bar, and use that for your hyperlink in your template. It's a lot easier. Okay, so now we're going to create a dynamic group in Act. So very similar to when we do the email blast. It's going to be the same, essentially the same process. We click on groups over on the left. So we have that highlighted first. You click that groups over the left, takes you to the groups section. Then you either give it you can click the new button at the top if you're going to create a new group, and then give it a name over on the right. So over on the right, and notice that we put asterisks in our name of it. That pushes that group name up to the top because, again, this is going to be in alphabetical order. So we want to push that up to the top so we don't have to go searching for through all of our groups to find our newsletter group. Although we've got a lot up there, so we start now have to go through all the ones that begin with asterisks. But that puts that up at the top, so we don't have to go searching for it. Then on the Context tab, there's an Add Remove Context. So we have that highlighted there as well. Make sure you're on the Context tab, click the Add Remove Context, and then this little window pops up right here in the middle. This is our group here. This is how we create the group, the criteria for a group. So there's two different ways of adding context to it. You have the manual static members at the top, where you manually, it'll give you a list of all the contacts. You manually select who's added to that group, or manually remove who's not. We don't really use that too much for the newsletter group. Now, the only exception maybe is if you want to put in your internal users, so your everybody that's in your office, and you want to make sure that they're included in that. You may want to add them to that manually so they stay with that. They don't have to match the criteria below to be added. They just automatically added to the group. So that, but otherwise, we're going to click that Edit Criteria button at the bottom, and this is where we're going to add in all of our criteria. And you can kind of see on ours, this is actually, I think this is a little old slide, so ours has grown even since then. But over the years, we have added and subtracted different criteria or rearranged the criteria in this. So every time we send out a newsletter, there's maybe somebody that didn't get it that we wanted them to get it, so we've come up here and modify this code, modify this criteria, or we some people did get it that we didn't, so we come back and change it. So we've kind of modified this over the years until there's probably now like 20 different criteria in it to choose from our database who's going to be in our newsletter group. But the nice thing about doing it this way is you set this up, you have this group ready. Now when you're ready to do your newsletter, you don't have to think about who you're sending it to. All you got to do is worry about that template, get that template created, set up, and then you have this group ready to go. And you can come back and modify this group anytime if it doesn't, but it'll save all of that criteria, and then anybody new added to the database, if they match the criteria, they automatically get added to the group. Or if something changes, they no longer match the criteria, they automatically get removed from the group. So it's an automatic process once this is set up, maintaining that list for you. So start using that, get that set up, and then now all you have to do is worry about your template. Okay. Okay, so now we have the template created, we have the group ready to go, so our third step of the process is to actually send it. So again, we're clicking on that little Swiftpage icon in Act. It brings up our Swiftpage window. This one is, there's two ways you can do it. So up at the top, you're going to select what context you're going to get it. If you have done a lookup of your group, you could just do select the current lookup. But if you don't have to do that, it's just an extra step. So you can just do it right from here and click select a group. It'll give you a drop-down list of all of your groups, again, in alphabetical order. And because you put an asterisk in front of that group name, it'll push that right up there to the top. So you select that group. That puts the group in the that little window there, and now you have your context selected, who you're going to get it. Below that is your template. So if you've been editing that template, it'll automatically pull that up, so you don't really have to go find it. But if not, there's a Select Templates button over on the right. You can click that. It'll give you a list of all your templates within your Swiftpage account, and you can select the correct one. Then below that is your subject line. So put in your subject line. What is this going to be? And then at the bottom, you have the social media. So if you have a Twitter account, a LinkedIn, Facebook page, You can connect all of those to your Swiftpage account, and if they are connected, they will appear here. It'll open that up, and you can check each one of those that you want to connect it to. What that's going to do is it's going to take it's going to take the subject line, and it's going to post that to each of these social media accounts with a link back to the newsletter, so the template. It'll actually make a copy of that template, post it up on the web hosted by Swiftpage, so that there's a link for them to click on and take them back to the Swiftpage account where you can see that. Keep in mind, though, that Swiftpage only keeps that up for a year, is it, Lori? Yeah, it's a year. So then after a year, that's going to be taken down. So if don't link it to it from on your website or anything like that, so because it does get pulled after a period of time. So then at the bottom, you would click Send Now, or if you have a Pro version, you can click Schedule Send and send it in the future. But if you click Send Now, it'll pop up another window. It'll show you exactly what it's going to do. It does say if you want to put in a note in there, we usually just leave that blank and hit Yes and go. So it'll then blast that out. Okay, so now we've sent it. We want to be able to track and report on what happened with that. So Swiftpage will track, of course, all of the opens and clicks and generate scores for each of the contexts from that. So again, we're clicking on the Swiftpage icon, open up our Swiftpage window, click on the Results tab now. And when we click on that, it lists all of our last emails that we've sent out that we still have updates to download. So the updates are any of the opens, clicks, anything where it's going to update the database from something that happened from those emails. So we click the Toggle All button and then Submit, and it will check all of them, check all the checkboxes. And when we hit the Submit, it says this is how many updates you're going to have. Now, if there's a considerable amount, you may want to run this overnight, depending on the speed of your computer as well, your internet. But because it will lock up your ACT database while it's processing all of this, and if it's connected to other users, it may slow them down as well. So you may want to run it overnight, although it shouldn't take too long to process all that. But once it's processed, if you go back into the Results tab, it should look like this. There should be nothing else to update. So you can run this as often as you want, and this is just downloading all the results into your database. And what that looks like is on the History tab of the contact record, it will show all of your emails sent. So when you actually send the email out, part of that send process, it will create a history of the email sent, but all of the scores and opens and everything will be 0. Once you download the results, it will update all of that. So we can see here an email that was sent and with a score of 122. That's quite a bit. We have 19 opens and 1 click. And if you see a high number under the opens, that probably is not that person opening it 19 times. Most likely what that means is that person forwarded on. And anybody else that receives that email and opens it, all of their opens are counted towards the original person that it was sent to. So if you see a very high number like that, that most likely means they forwarded on to multiple people, and all those people opened it, and they all get included in the counts. So, but we see a few other ones there. There's some opens, a few clicks. So the clicks generate even a higher score number as well. So, and then if you show them, point to the hot there, or under the one that has the 122 is just to the right of that. There you go. So this is actually showing that this is a hot lead, and that's based on that score. So because they've opened it so many times, this is considered a hot lead. And all of that information is then brought into, what's the next slide? Brought into the call list. So it uses those scores to create a call list for you, and the call list is going to give you all of the contacts with the hottest scores down to the lower number scores. So if you go back into Swiftpage, click on the call list on the home screen, click on the call list, it lists again all of the, go ahead, next one. It lists all of the latest email blasts. So you can include just a single email, or you can include multiple emails in your call list. So it'll combine all of that together. You highlight the ones you want, hit add, it puts them down at the bottom of the screen. So this is going to include all 3 of these emails in this particular call list. So we hit next, give it a name. So whatever naming convention you want to use for this will download back into your Act database. So give it a name that you're going to recognize. And you can adjust the threshold. So there was the scores and stuff. If you want to adjust that, we typically leave that stuff alone. They do a pretty good job of figuring out what your hot, medium, and low leads are, so we don't really mess with that too much. But click the Generate Call List. It creates the list, and it shows you up on the screen. So if you just want to see it on the screen, you can see it up here. It'll have the highest score at the top, going all the way down to the lower score. So even on the screen, it's going to show the person's name, phone number, company email address. So it'll give you all the information you need if you want to follow up with them right from the screen, and you don't have to pull it into your database. But if you want to pull it in your database so you can schedule callbacks and everything on your calendar, if you click the List Management button at the bottom, it will give you the option to either email it to yourself there, so you can email it as a spreadsheet. You can work off of a spreadsheet on your computer, or you can email it to somebody else as well. It'll ask you for who you want to email it to. But this will also now appear on your Marketing Results tab. So in Act, there's the Marketing Results tab. We have it highlighted here. This is what it looks like. It has 3 columns in this. Actually, there's 4, but 3 are the ones that we really need to pay attention to. There is, at the top of the middle column, it says Call List. If we hit the arrow button to the right, it puts our call list over on the right, and we usually use the summary on the left so we can see kind of the last information about that content. On that call list, though, there's a drop-down menu, and at the drop-down menu, it will have on that list your call list that you created. If you don't see it there, there's an update button at the bottom. You can go down there and update, and then that'll open up Swiftpage website where you can update the call list, and that will download all the latest information to it. So, but then it should appear on this. And what will happen is it'll take you to the very first record on that call list, and so you can see we're on one of 100 or 503. It'll automatically take you to that record in the database. So you can see up at the top, we're on Art Huey's record, and he's the hottest prospect that's on that call list. It automatically took us to his record, so we can now call him. And if we need to schedule a follow-up, there's on the summary on the left, there's a new button next to Activity that'll allow you to create a callback or a history. If we get a hold of them and talk to them, we can go do a history right from here without having to flip to those tabs to record any of that. We can do it from this screen without having to flip back and forth. Once you've finished with that, and at the bottom of that, it shows us how many times he opened it, how many clicks he had. So he clicked on this 11 times. He opened it 49 times. He probably forwarded it on as well. But so you can see all of that here right on the screen. And then as you arrow, there's arrows right in the middle of that too. As you arrow the next one, it will take you to that next record on the call list. It'll automatically look that contact up in your database, take you to that record. And so now you can just call the next one. You just kind of keep moving down the line as you're making these phone calls or you're going down this call list. So it'll take you over to the record, allow you to make that phone call, schedule follow-up if you need to, put in a history if you need to, all right from this Marketing Results tab without having to flip around in your database. Okay. Okay, so there's additional reports within Swiftpage. There's opens reports showing you a listing of all the people that open by email address. There's also one for clicks, so how many people clicked on each link. So in this particular report, we like this report because we want to know which link is working within our template. We may have 4 or 5 different links in there, and if we have one right at the very beginning that's not getting any clicks, maybe we want to move it down further in that, giving them a little bit more of a description before we provide the link to them. Or we may want to do multiple links of the same thing in different locations in our newsletter. But we want to be able to test all of that out to see what's working, where those links work the best. And especially if you're using the same template over and over again for your newsletter, you can kind of keep tweaking that template until you get it to perform the best of its ability. So the way we could do that is we look at this report. This one's called Unique Clicks by Link. You can kind of see that there in the middle screen. So it's just under the reports in Swiftpage for this particular email. It shows our link number, just in order of the links down the left-hand side there, and then how many clicks on each one of those. So by looking at that, you can see our first 3 are the same exact links. So we gave them 3 different places to register within our template, and we can see which one works. The very first one works, which is at the very beginning. So before we even put hardly anything on there, we put a link that says register now. That's the one that's getting the most links because most of the people that are receiving our emails know us, and they can kind of look at the headline and say, or the subject line and say, okay, we want to do that, go. They don't even have to read anything about us. But a few read a little bit more, and then even a few more read all the way down the bottom to get to the last one. So you can kind of see where the links are working. Now, if we didn't have that link at the very beginning, we were forcing people to go all the way down to the bottom of our email. We may lose a lot of them. So you can kind of see that on this report as well, but having it at the top, the very first thing that they see, they give them a place to click. That's generating a lot of response for us. Okay, Lori, is this yours?
Sure. All right, so we're wrapping up. If you've got any questions, and we've already got a couple, Todd, go ahead and post them in the chat box, and we'll get to them in a second. I just want to show you that this is one of the cheat sheets that we will have posted on our website and give you a link to tomorrow. This is one that shows an easy way to plan and follow up with your email newsletter. It gives you some checklists. It gives you, what should you talk about? How are you going to do it each time? How often are you going to do it? And it's a way that you can also track your results because over time, as Todd just showed, it helps to kind of plan where, be mindful of where you're putting your links so that you can tell which part of the newsletter people are actually paying attention to as opposed to other places. We're also going to give you an Excel spreadsheet that has a way for you to track your results over time. This one actually goes on and on and on and on. I couldn't fit it all on here, but it's quite a substantially comprehensive tracking spreadsheet that we stopped using for our newsletter because we got to the point where we had all of the information that we needed to know about the who, what, where, when, why, and we don't vary anything that much. So now what we test is content and what kind of content works best. But in the beginning, when you're trying to figure out pieces and parts and where to put things, this was very helpful. It also helps with seeing if certain days work better, certain times work better, things like that. So I would definitely suggest that you use that maybe for the first year that you're doing your newsletter. This is just some, again, this will be on the recording resources links that you're going to get tomorrow. But if you, this is like put you to sleep stuff, but it really tells you what the highlights of canned spam are. And by having Swiftpage as your email service provider, a lot of that is covered for you. But of course, there's some things that you're still responsible for. And Swiftpage can and has fired clients from their account who don't follow the rules. Usually they'll give you a call first, so if you've not been called, you're probably in good shape. But if you do have a curiosity about what's included, then check those out. And Todd, let's take some questions.
Okay. You want me to read them?
I'll read them because you're going to answer them. So Jeffrey wants to know, is there a way to download the newsletter for your records in the case that Swiftpage deletes it after a year so that you can still have the content?
Yeah, you can. If you email yourself the email, so just do a test to yourself, there's a button at the very bottom that says View in Web Browser. That is the link to the Swiftpage view of that template. So that's their hosted version of that template. You could either copy the source code out of it, paste that into your on your website, or you could even save that email because that'll have all the source code in it for your archive or something like that. But you would have to move that somewhere else. So you'd have to copy the code out of it, put it on your site or somewhere else in order to save that.
All right. And Jeffrey also wanted to know, I kind of answered this already, but I don't know if it went out to everybody. For the Marketing Results tab, do we have to purchase an upgrade in Swiftpage, or is that provided by Act? Is that page provided by Act?
Yeah, it will be included in the software. It kind of depends on what version. As long as you're in a relatively recent version within the last 5 or 6 years, it should already be in your software, so you don't have to do anything extra to get it. It is the call list. In order to get that included in there, though, you do have to have the Pro or Team version of Swiftpage. Doesn't matter what the drip marketing module is, you don't need that, but you need the Pro or Team version in order to be able to get the call list. Other than that, everything that we've shown you is all included in your subscription.
Okay, great. So next week will be our 3rd out of 3 in our series about the Treasure Triangle. We're going to be talking about drip marketing. That's a topic that is near and dear to our hearts. That's what we like doing the most because we've seen the most significant conversion rates with it. So we hope that you'll show up. I'm adding new material from previous presentations that I've done on that, so that'll be a really, really good one. I've not really done any training in this format before on drip marketing, so if you think that you're going to get involved with that this year, it'll be a really good one for you to attend. And tomorrow, watch for your email. Probably, it's usually around noon, 1, early afternoon that the link comes out. It comes from GoToWebinar, not from us. So it'll be from a GoToWebinar domain, and it will have the recording from today as well as all of the links to resources that we've been mentioning. So Todd, any other questions? I think we're good.
I think that's it.
All right. Thank you, everybody, and hope to see you next week.